Welcome to the County Manager's Report. I'm Lloyd Higuera, and with me is Interim County Manager Larry Werner. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Nice to have you here, and how's it been going as this, the new Interim County Manager?
It's been interesting. It's fun, and I'm learning a lot, but it's great people. I mean, we've had good support, so yeah, it's actually been very, very interesting.
Very good.
Very busy.
Good. Very busy. I'm sure that's the operative word. Well, we have a busy agenda to talk about here today. We had two meetings we have to cover. First meeting was a short meeting, and the second meeting was a long meeting. So we'll deal with the short one first. And that was on April 17th, the Board of Commissioners meeting up at Lake Tahoe. And now on that agenda, Commissioners approved a Judicial Services Department for Douglas County. And what will this new department be doing?
Essentially, it'll be the same function that the employees performed when they were part of the clerk treasurer's office. There was some changes in I guess, judicial proceedings that allowed the employees to be transferred from the treasurer or the clerk's office over to judicial, and it seemed to be a more of an efficient move. They're working for the judges. They're right there, so supervision, management just made more sense to have that done in the judicial department. So essentially, the same job, but just reporting structure's different.
So these aren't new employees that are coming in. These are people that already are here in the clerk's office.
That's correct.
I see.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just kind of a reshuffling of departments, if you will.
Exactly.
Making it more convenient for the judges, I guess.
Yeah, and also the employees, because they're working in a location that's distant from their manager,
Sure.
Ted Thron, the city or county clerk, excuse me. This way, it puts them right in the organization which they actually are doing the work for. So.
Okay. Well, sounds like a good, efficient move. Commissioners heard an update on the 2014 legislative activities. That was from Walker and Associates. Of course, the legislature doesn't meet officially this year, or 2014.
Correct.
But they so we get kind of a break there. But they still do get together and talk about things, don't they?
A lot of things that occur during the interim session or the interim time periods between sessions, and what the Walker and Associates were reporting on the issues that probably will be the major hot buttons come for the next session.
Right.
And they'll seem to focus again around health issues, healthcare issues, state pass downs, where they're trying to look at where's the best government to provide the services, that sort of thing, is at local government, state level, and who's going to actually pay the cost on those. So it's going to be a major issue at the next session, and everybody's just trying to stay in tune with what's going on.
Have we seen any Douglas County issues on the radar yet, or is that still too soon?
Not for the legislative session that I've seen. I've not heard anything. Most counties, actually, over the last few years have been more in a defensive mode than an offensive mode. It's kind of, we really don't have anything to bring forward, but we sure want to protect what we've got.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to another legislative session coming up. And, of course, the Walkers are Douglas County's representative there.
Correct.
And
Correct.
They're right on the front lines the whole session.
They do a good job. Yes,
yeah.
they do.
Excellent job. Then one more item from that April 17th meeting, Commissioners approving a plan development modification application. This was by Fat Pads Inc. and Cave Rock Junction LLC, modifying a development schedule. So what kind of a project is proposed here?
What I could gather, again, I had to try to go back and try to get up to speed on this, but it appears to be a residential and small commercial development as a planned unit development, taking areas that were probably not being best utilized and maybe improving some of the facilities there, and trying to make it a more of a modern residential development, and again, like I said, some strip commercial. So I think what the action was here was just to kind of extend out the time frame to give them a little more opportunity to get the things taken care of.
Okay. Well, that pretty much covers the April 17th meeting. I think that was done in less than an hour, wasn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And then we move on now to the May 1st meeting. It was a happy May Day for all of us. I think that meeting started at 1 in the afternoon and was over at 11 o'clock.
That's correct, yes.
So it was a long session.
It was.
But the commissioners had some pretty weighty issues on their plate, one of which was, of course, commissioners discussing and possibly adopting rates and fees and charges for Douglas County water systems. And what actually happened on that particular item.
What was interesting is that there's a lot of public comment, which I guess is good because that's kind of what makes government work. But we were set to go forward with a resolution implementing an action that was approved back on March 6th on setting the actual rates. However, the community came forward, particularly the East Valley community on water and sewer, and wanted to talk about those rates, wanted to look at alternatives, wanted to discuss what the mechanisms were on how the rates got to where they were. The commissioners took a lot of testimony and essentially came to the conclusion that there was a lot of misunderstanding on how this all worked. So they directed staff to go meet with this community, develop some kind of a workshop where we could talk about how rates are developed, what this all means, how it works. Won't necessarily change the final outcome, but to at least try to get an understanding of what goes into it. Because like I say, there was a lot of misconceptions on what goes into setting a water rate. So they tabled the item until the June 3rd meeting and asked staff to meet with the folks that were there and anybody else that wanted to come in a session out in the Johnson Lane, Stephanie Way area to have kind of a community workshop to do a little bit of a primer on rate structure and how it works and that sort of thing. So we're in the process now of trying to develop the time frame and also to kind of develop what it would be that would present that information in a not so technical a manner, but a manner that makes sense, that people can relate to, and how this all works. So that's what we'll be doing now, is trying to get that set up, and then back on June 3rd for the actual resolution to set the rates.
Yeah, there was quite a bit of public comment, quite a crowd there too for that item and the next item we're going to talk about, which had kind of a similar outcome. Commissioners were discussing the monthly sewer rates for Douglas County sewer utility, and they made a kind of a similar decision there.
That's correct. That's the same thing. Back in March, they had looked at options on both items, water and sewer, and had recommended that a specific rate be developed. I think it was 3.25% for water, and also, I believe, 3.25% for sewer. Hopefully I got that right. And it was the same issue. There was a lot of misconception about what those dollars were being used for, also what happened to any ending fund balances that may have existed at the time in these utilities. So again, we're going to take a look at both of these, go back and really look at the history, being able to talk to the folks about, okay, where did we start at, where are we at today, what's the future look like? And again, give them an opportunity to ask questions and try to understand what's going on.
Yeah, sure. So there'll be workshops scheduled, and then we'll see all this come back in June to
right.
the commission meeting.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, also, commissioners increasing the maximum size of an accessory dwelling on certain size lots, but they did make some changes to the original proposal.
Right. Yes, and this, I believe, started at the previous meeting down here in the valley. There was a lot of discussion about, in the first reading of the ordinance, about this item, and the concern was raising the size of an accessory dwelling from an 800 square foot to, I believe it was 1,200 square
right.
feet for areas, excuse me, for lot sizes that were net 1 acre or larger. And there was a lot of contention over this one as well. A lot of people felt that this would change the character of the neighborhoods, that they're actually adding more dwelling units. Concerns about whether or not it impacted the growth plan of the county. So there was a lot of discussion, mainly trying to, again, clarify some maybe misunderstandings. For example, it's very clear that anything that gets built in the residential, whether it's an accessory dwelling or not, is counted against the growth management numbers. So that part was taken care of, but then there was still the issue of whether 1,200 was an appropriate size, whether 800 was an appropriate size, or some other number. And what complicated the issue a little further was that it came out of the Planning Commission with kind of a no vote based on a tie. And so that kind of left it a little bit in limbo, although there was still some of the same conversation at the Planning Commission meeting. So I think ultimately the compromise was to leave it at status quo, which is 800 square feet as an accessory dwelling unit for those lots that are net size greater than 1 acre up to 2 acres. And then anything that has a net lot size of 2 acres and above could go to 1,000 square feet. So that seemed to be a compromise that addressed some of the issues. And that's kind of where we're headed now. So.
Now that was a second reading, wasn't it?
That's correct.
So
right.
that now has passed. Then.
That's correct.
That's the law of the land.
Law of the land, exactly. Until it gets changed again. So
right.
I suspect that the whole topic will probably be revisited during the master plan update, which will occur here in the near future. So
yeah. Okay. Also, there was an interesting update too at the meeting, economic vitality plan, and commissioners also approved some changes to the plan. Maybe you could tell us a little about the update on the plan and what the changes were.
Yeah, I wish I was a little more familiar with exactly what the plan was. I know that it was very interesting. What I gathered out of it, that there was certainly a kind of a celebration of successes, a testing of what had been set in the first stage of the plan, and maybe there need to be some modifications. What I brought with me today, Lloyd, is just simply I know where they're headed. I can't tell you what it was in the past. I think they had some like 12 objectives, or I can't remember what they call them.
That sounds about right, yeah.
And I think they narrowed that down to 8, and I did bring those. They talked about the distinct downtowns, which were the Lake and Valley. Then they talked about the education innovation, working with K through 12, accelerating advanced manufacturing, open for business. And maybe I should go back a little bit. I think the K through 12 education innovation was to work with the education system to try to get a trained workforce, so that as people come into the area with businesses, they have the ability to have trained labor. Accelerating advanced manufacturing was to try to reach out to those manufacturers that seem to kind of fit the valley and what makes sense here. Open for business was really directed, I guess, as much to the county as any place else, is to make sure that our processes are streamlined, convenient, do what we need to do, yet also don't be so bureaucratic that you can't get your way through it. So
sure.
Take a look at what we're doing there. Transportation attraction, they're talking about some feasibility studies with I think truck traffic and routing around the area. That's been an ongoing discussion probably for the last 50 years, but hopefully someday we'll get to that. And then talking about the V&T, I know Chris Bentley had made a presentation, which we'll talk a little bit about how he felt that the economic vitality of the Minden area particularly ties in very well with trying to expand the V&T to come down into the Minden area and from Carson City and maybe a loop up to Genoa kind of approach. And anyway, just some ideas and to keep that in the forefront. And then the sport aviation destination, that's just to continue the success that this area has had with the gliders, with the other kind of activities, just to keep that in the forefront. And then the last thing was the tremendous trails, to take advantage of our geology and our sites out here, and to be able to do the trails and the kinds of things that people enjoy doing on the outdoors. So it was very interesting, and I really did not do it justice in this discussion because it was a very, very informative program. So.
Yeah, a lot of people, and they're mainly volunteers, have really done a lot of work on this and have done a great job of putting together, programs that will enhance the economic vitality of the area. And Lisa Granahan, of course, manages all that and does a great job. And so I guess the change was they wanted to get down to 8.
That's correct.
Yeah,
my understanding
rather than 12 items. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Like I say, I did it short shrift on really what all happened, because they really were the champions of these different programs, right, and all those kinds of things. So I mean, it was really, I learned a lot there. Hopefully in the next few months I'll get more on top of what's going on with those, because it is so extremely important.
Yeah, but they have had, as you say, some great successes. I mean, the community center is just one example. I mean, one large example of right, success that they've had. Yep, enhancing the economic vitality of the valley. So yeah, good work, and if they can accomplish all those goals, this would be a heck of a place to live.
Yeah, much better. Yeah, well, I shouldn't say much. It'll enhance it.
Enhance.
Exactly, because it's a wonderful place as it is today. So.
Yes. Well, there's kind of a multifaceted item next here. Commissioners approved 3 items regarding the Sierra Country Estates water system. Now, Douglas County had to take over that water system. It was a failed water system, and they really had no choice. They have to pick it up when it fails. And so the commissioners did approve correcting some deficiencies with the system and some violations that the system had. And then they also decided to keep the water rates where they were at for right now anyway, and approve bonds for improvements to the water system. So all that kind of ties together in a big bundle, doesn't it?
It does, yes. And I didn't quite understand the nature of the violations. I think there was several things that were listed in the report. I'll know more about it here because we have to sign an order with the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection here shortly. But essentially the state has cited the water system for violations. They reached out to the county basically saying, I guess we need help, we got to get this thing fixed. So the county looked at several alternatives under the preliminary engineering report and recommended a particular solution that also was approved by the Board of County Commissioners. And then they looked at a rate that would help fund the bonds that they would sell to implement that solution. So yes, all three are tied together. This is kind of the initial stage to get this rolling, and once the actual determinations are made on the details of the improvements and the actual costs, then there'll be adjustments to rates and, you know, kind of get down to taking it from what kind of an estimate level today to a more detailed level in the future.
Sure. Now they were talking about what, 1.5 million in bonds that they were.
That was the maximum. What they did is they did an authorization up to, and I think the alternative that they picked was like 1.1 million.
Okay.
And they're looking at maybe reducing that. So what that does is give the county the authorization to go up to 1.5 million if it's necessary, but essentially we won't go any higher than what we need to fix the problem right now. So
Right.
yeah.
So really, basically, the problems out there, it's $1 million problem, I guess. I mean, or
It is.
problems.
Yes.
Maybe is more.
Yes. And the alternatives, I think there were 5 basic alternatives with a couple of options off of those. So, and they ranged, I believe, from one of them was, I think, as low as 800,000, but it depended on a bunch of things happening that weren't realistic in the ability to do those in the near future. So those basically were left on the side at this point. And they picked an alternative that looked like it was very doable in the short term, gets everything to where it should be, and then sit down and really start looking at the future of that whole water system and how it needs to operate.
And again, it's one of those water systems that has very few customers, so it does impact those customers quite a bit on the rates, on the rate side.
What, 17 customers I think there are?
Yeah,
So,
17, right.
Right, yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay, we get to Christopher Bentley here. You mentioned him earlier. Commissioners did hear his presentation on his vision for change and preservation on the historic properties in the town of Minden. And boy, has he got some plans.
Oh, wow, yeah, it was exciting. It was almost overwhelming. And I tried to go back and review what he had presented because unfortunately we didn't get a copy of his report. So we were watching it at the same time, trying to digest it. But it was incredible what he's got in mind, and I wish, you know, I brought a couple of things that I could kind of refer to, but essentially, it's the distillery and mill district that he's talking about converting on the north side of 395, I guess, and then the Farmers Bank building that kind of lies at the corner of what, 5th and Esmeralda, I believe. So you take all that into encompass the whole program, and it was really interesting on what he sees there. You know, open space, parks. First of its kind of distilleries that are in the area, just a whole raft of things, which I wish I could point to and say.
Well, he had restaurants and all kinds of walkable space in there.
Yes.
And, yeah, the gift shops and yeah, it went on and on. So it's a destination.
Absolutely,
is what he's trying to create there. And I guess it kind of goes together with his dream of the railroad coming in.
Right.
Because then the railroad would have somewhere to go, you know, for the destination.
He showed a terminus there, their location at that site. Yeah. So unfortunately, I was watching it so intently that I didn't lock the stuff in on what I should be making notes on, because it was really, really interesting. I mean, that's an amazing process, amazing man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting, and yeah, that was always a dream of his father's, Don Bentley, to bring the V&T back down here again. And Don put a lot of time, effort, and money into that project, but it's almost overwhelming. I mean, the right-of-ways, and I mean the whole thing that you have to go through. Some of the right-of-ways still exist,
yes.
but then they stop, and then the property is owned by somebody else, and you have to negotiate with them. And
just what we saw in the Carson area, the biggest issues will be environmental. You know, where do you cross rivers, and where do you do this and do that, and the rest of it, it's just money. But you know,
yeah, a lot of money. But yeah, we wish him the best, because it really will change the face of Minden. I mean,
absolutely,
what he has in mind. Yeah, the old Farmers Bank building is a start, and that'll be his headquarters. And then just across the street and down a little ways would be the mill district, the old mill, and then the butter and egg factory in the back, which used to be the old Bentley, Nevada.
Yes.
And the wool factory across the street.
Yeah,
So,
like I say, I've got to get some information where I can really sit down and digest that, because, like I say, that was my first exposure, and it was just almost blinding. You know, I mean, you start thinking about all the things that could happen, and the positive side of things, and you kind of lose track of what he was saying. So.
Yeah, it's a huge project, that's for sure. And speaking of huge projects, commissioners also heard a presentation, this time from Heavenly, and they were talking about their EPIC Discovery project. And I actually hadn't heard too much about this until I saw the presentation there.
Same here.
Yeah, it's big.
I found it fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a overall it's a health and fitness kind of program with the ability to enjoy the mountains in the summertime, and essentially it's taking what the Heavenly ski area and opening it up in the summertime, which I believe the Forest Service is now allowing to happen on its properties, and this may be the second one in the country they were talking about that's making application, and it appears to be going forward very well. But the idea of different levels of activity, different skill levels, different kinds of educational kinds of things, so it ties it all together with a great outdoor experience from family to individual to whatever. And it was one of those that's kind of it was hard to digest all the things that were up there, but it really looked like it'd be a great benefit to the Heavenly Valley area, and this is a destination to this area.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I love the way they staged it, because they have they had different names for it, but like Discovery. You can go up there and just kind of wander around and discover things.
Yes.
Then you can get more involved. They have zip lines and all kinds of other things, activities a little more strenuous. Then they've got the real adventurers where they can go out in the back there and really get a real adventure experience. So yeah, it looks like a great plan. And as you point out, talk about economic vitality.
Oh, boy.
I mean, that's really going to help the area to have that an all-round resort,
Yes.
year-round.
Yes. Well,
resort.
it makes sense. You got a lot of opportunity for people to enjoy this more than just in the wintertime. You got a tremendous summertime activity.
Sure.
It just makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, another item that commissioners heard about that's exciting is the Douglas County Community, I should say, and Senior Center project. And it was good to hear that that's on time and no cost overruns. And
It's unusual for a project.
It
It's
is very unusual.
Nice, yes, but I think they were 60% complete. I think is
That's
what
what he
Scott
said,
Morgan
yeah.
said. He gave a great presentation on that, and I suppose it's okay to say also that I believe on Wednesdays they offer a tour. If you contact Scott's office, and I don't have the number, I apologize for that, but apparently you can sign up and they'll do a tour to take you through what are the activities going to be there, what it looks like, how it's being constructed, all those kinds of things. And
they even throw in lunch.
And they throw in lunch. Yeah, when I first got here, they did a quick tour for me to kind of just show me what was there, and it is really, again, it's one of those amazing things. Douglas County's got a lot to be proud of, and this is one of those. Combining a senior center with children's activities, with recreation, and you're combining the age groups that really need to be combined.
Yeah, it's really a multi-generational center.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I'm just thinking there, and I'm watching that as I've seen other senior centers and other daycare centers and stuff for children, and you think, boy, there's a benefit to everybody here.
Sure.
It really is nice.
No, I can see the community and senior center becoming a real central piece for the community. I mean, like you say, all age groups checking in for different reasons and doing things there.
Absolutely.
And they're even talking about senior daycare too for
Yes.
people that are looking
Yes.
after maybe their aging parents, and they need a break, and so they'll.
And I think they were talking, I know what Scott was explaining when I went through there, was that they're not going to compete with private daycare centers and stuff for children, but there's an opportunity that if somebody needs a short one-day
Right.
place to drop off, it's a way to do that. And then all the other recreation activities that you do as a normal recreation center. So it looks like it's a really good mix.
Yeah, the Kale Center up at Lake Tahoe has always been very successful, and I think a lot of people have always said, "Why don't we have one of those in the Carson Valley?" And now we're going to. And the Kale Center again is a real hub of the Lake Tahoe community too. So that's moving along well. Also, there was another looked like a housekeeping matter here. Commissioners adopted some modifications to the Douglas County Parks and Recreation Department Programs and Facilities Manual. And I guess a lot of those changes were to kind of include the new center that's coming.
Right, because I think one of the big issues was to make sure that the funding was available to operate it once you had it constructed. And
Right.
so Scott and his staff have been working very diligently to try to see where that they can reasonably charge fees for activities. It's that age-old thing where you don't want to charge so much that you drive people away, but yet it still needs to be enough to make it viable. And I think they've come up with a very good plan. It appears to be not very onerous, and it takes care of a few issues that they'd had before on whether they should be charging or not charging in certain areas.
Well, here's one near and dear to your heart, the county manager recruitment. They talked about a brochure and recruitment strategy, and it was developed by Peckham and McKinney, the executive recruitment search. So how is the search going?
Well, now it'll officially start. That was kind of what had been going up to this point, and I wanted to get it in front of the board so that they could actually approve that, is because they're going to be the one, it's their employee,
Sure.
is to the HR department and the consultant had developed a time frame, had developed a brochure, marketing brochure, basically to send out for folks that might be interested in the position. They got the green light on that. I think a few minor edits on just changing some wording here and there, but very, very minor stuff. So that will now be officially sent out, noticed, and people then can start. I think it's contacting the HR department here in Douglas County for if they're interested in an application and how that process would work. It's set on a timeline, and I did not bring that with me, but it's a fairly aggressive timeline, but I think it's realistic. Still talking probably 3 months, 3 to 4 months from now to actually get through that process. So,
do you think in 3 or 4 months we'll actually be seeing people coming to town and being interviewed and that type of thing?
I think so, yes. We can compare it to the neighbors to the north. They just completed their city manager selection process up there, and it took them, I guess, right about 6 months.
Okay.
But there was a couple of areas in there that took longer than people anticipated. I think the holidays were one of those
Sure.
that added some time to it. And if we look at what has been prepared here, it looks very realistic as to, draw interested candidates, qualified candidates, an opportunity for them to come visit the community, an opportunity for the community to visit with them. Several things that will be happening in the interim while this is going on. To select the candidates will actually be to develop committees that will be part of a vetting process, trying to look at some citizen involvement committees so that people get a chance to meet who their new county manager might be, that sort of thing.
Sure.
So.
Well, it'll be an interesting process to watch,
Yes,
that's for sure.
I'm really encourage them to do it as quickly as they can.
Do we have any, I know the next meeting is May 15th. Do we have items yet available for the meeting on the 15th? Oh, okay.
The first, actually, I should
Somewhere in that stack.
it's a fairly short meeting as far as number of items go. But again, we're going to be discussing water and sewer rates at Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
Or water rates, excuse me, not sewer rates. And then we'll move into a presentation by Mike Bowman on the Nevada Public Land Management Task Force. That's a Nevada Legislative Interim Committee, and he's going to make a report on that. At that point, we're going to go to a time specific, 2 o'clock, to hear the resolution on water rates at Lake Tahoe. So
Okay.
If you're there for the water rates, be there at 2 o'clock, and we'll jump right to that. Then after that, we'll finish up with the district attorney has an ordinance and cleaning up some information, get some direction on the live entertainment that had been brought forward before. And we'll do a part of the consolidation of the utility, the enterprise fund up there, and that'll be part of the discussion after the public works discussion, and then just the general reports and comments from the staff and the commissioners. So,
Well, Larry, I want to thank you very much for all the information you shared with us here on the County Manager's Report. Larry Werner, the interim county manager, with us today. I'm Lloyd Higuera, and we'll see you next time right here on the County Manager's Report.